If you like to learn about home insurance and life insurance, you must watch this video. Welcome. Denise, please introduce yourself. Tell us about how long you've been in business, what kind of service you provide, everything about you.
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Denise Talk. I'm a Desjardins insurance agent. My office is in Stony Creek in Winona, and I do home, auto, life, and business insurance and everything that has to do with that. Opened my agency 6 years ago as of October 1st, and I've been in the insurance business for almost 15 years now.
What the best insurance my client or your client can buy from you?
Well, when you're buying a house or a condo, or even if you're renting somewhere, you need to make sure that you have the right insurance. So best thing to do is if you're looking to buy or to move, call your insurance company first, just to make sure that they can give you a quote and provide you with the right policy. Depending on where you're moving or what type of house you're buying, it could be tricky sometimes to get insurance if, for example, it's an older home, hasn't been updated, that kind of thing. So always call your insurance company first.
Okay.
If you have car insurance with them already, they're probably going to be able to give you a discount on the home. If you do end up buying a house or a condo and getting a mortgage, then you want to make sure you have enough life insurance to cover that too.
Okay. You mentioned that you have to check first if the house new or old. Is there any specific if it's house old and fixed by someone?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Sometimes a lot of insurance companies will ask, of course, they need to know how old it is and if it's been updated. So if, for example, it has knob and tube wiring, it's going to be really difficult to find insurance. Most companies would either decline it or they want you to have it replaced within a certain amount of time. Or if it's a heritage home, same thing. A lot of companies either won't insure it at all or they will, but it's going to be tricky to find it and it's probably going to be expensive. Yeah.
So you mentioned about the location. So if I'm buying a house, let's say in Brampton, Mississauga, Toronto, or here in Stony Creek, would it be a difference?
With the home insurance, there's so many different factors that go into making the rates. The location itself is only one of them, but definitely city versus rural sometimes is going to make a difference, especially if it's in the country and there's not fire hydrants or a fire station close by, then it'll be more expensive.
Okay, that's a good one. You mentioned about a fire hydrant. If one of the hydrants on my property, will I have a discount?
Depends on the company. Okay. But I know for our company, as long as it's within 1,000 feet. So whether it's 200 feet or 900 feet, it would be the same.
What you can recommend when you buy fixer-uppers? Like to look at something or?
Yeah, I think you want to just make sure when you're going to make that purchase, like as you would probably recommend too, that you get a home inspection to make sure that everything was done properly and not just to make it look nice. I have a family member of mine who's doing a big renovation right now, and the contractor found once they started taking off the light fixtures that the electrical was never done properly. And they're lucky that it didn't start a fire already. Wow. So I think probably just making sure you're still doing that inspection. And then if you are planning to buy a house that you're going to renovate, again, anytime you do renovations to your property, you have to make sure you tell your insurance company so that they know the house they're insuring now is a little bit different from what it was before. You finish your basement, replace your roof, that kind of thing. But also people sometimes run into situations where they want to buy a house just to flip it. And then it's vacant and under construction, which again is going to be tricky to find a company who will insure that. If it's just minor renovations, that's one thing. But if you're going to be not even moving in until you do a major renovation, you have to make sure that they are aware of that.
If someone fall down on my property, does insurance?
Yeah, so every home insurance, condo, tenant policy, they all have liability included. And so depending on the situation, likely that's something that it would be covered because what the person has to do is they have to show that you were negligent. So if you didn't clean off the snow on your front steps and they slipped and fell and now they're hurt and they can't work, then they're going to sue you for that. And your liability on your policy will likely extend. Again, every situation is different, but I know in the past we've had claims where someone was having a family barbecue and someone sat on a chair that was a little bit broken and fell and hurt their back. and this was a family member. But you never know. If someone gets seriously injured as a result of you giving them a wonky chair.
Also question, when I buy my insurance and it covers all the belongings, what about appliances? If something happened, let's say a fire, so what insurance will cover?
So the way that it works, again, with most policies is that if you have contents that are damaged because of a covered loss, so for example, like you mentioned, fire, what you have to do is you have to provide the insurance company a list of everything that was lost or damaged, when you purchased it, and how much you paid for it at that time. Okay. And then what they'll do is they'll figure out how much all that stuff is worth now. They'll give you the money to cover what it's worth now. And then as you start replacing it, you submit those receipts, and then they give you the difference. Because, for example, you had a 10-year-old stove. They're going to give you what a 10-year-old stove is worth, but they don't expect you to then go buy another 10-year-old stove. So then once you go buy a new one that's a similar kind, then they reimburse you the difference.
Another question I hear often, what about some art or like expensive jewelries or something which has high value? Mm-hmm. What about replacements of those items?
So for certain items, most insurance companies will have a limit on it. Okay. So then you would, if you have like a lot of jewelry or one very expensive piece, you can insure it as an additional rider, and then it would be covered up to the full cost. A lot of the time you have to submit an appraisal. But I always tell people, like, even with just your day-to-day stuff, if you have a fire and your house is gone, it's very difficult to say, okay, what was in every single room. So a lot of people will just go around their house on a regular day and take a video of the inside, just in case something like that happens.
Nowadays, after COVID especially, people are working from home. And most of the houses has the home office. What in these cases?
Yeah, definitely. So if you are running your own business out of your home, you want to make sure that you let your insurance company know, because either your home policy may extend to your kind of business, or you need to make sure you have a separate business policy for that. So if, for example, a photographer, they have a whole bunch of equipment that they use for their photography business, they keep in their home. If their house burns down, their home insurance isn't going to cover all that photography equipment that they use for their business. So they need to make sure they have a separate policy for that thing. Yeah. So if someone's visiting your house because they're there for a business purpose and they trip, you can have a problem with the claim unless you have business insurance.
Does insurance, like home insurance, cover flood, or it has to be added if someone didn't know, like it's a standard insurance, or it has to be added like a premium? Or
I think most companies, it's an additional coverage that you can add. Again, hopefully when you got your policy, the person advised you on what you really should have, and then it's kind of up to you to decide. But that's another reason why it's, sometimes concerning with all these online companies. Oh, go online and get your policy in minutes. Well, how do you even know what you're buying, what you're getting covered for? So we will always quote everybody with the full limits of coverage, and then it's up to them to say, no, I don't think I need it. In the past, it was difficult to get flood insurance in Ontario, but now most places are offering it. So most companies, you can get flood and sewer backup or sump pump failure, that kind of thing. But earthquake and flood is usually extra coverages that you can choose to add. For whatever reason.
What type of life insurances? And can you bundle them to home insurance? What the premiums? What's the benefits? Can you elaborate on the life insurance?
So especially when you're buying a house and you're getting a mortgage, we always recommend you have at least enough life insurance to cover the mortgage. So similar to mortgage insurance that the bank would offer as well, except that when you're getting mortgage insurance through the bank, if you pass away, the bank is your beneficiary. So all that gets paid off is whatever's left on the mortgage. So if, for example, you have, a lot of my clients are like young couples buying a house together for the first time. They're both contributing to all the monthly expenses. They both qualified for the mortgage together. If one of them passes away, the other one now has to be able to qualify for that mortgage themselves, even though they now only have one income. So what I always recommend is they each have enough life insurance to cover the mortgage. So say the mortgage is $1 million. he has $1 million, she has $1 million. If one passes away, the other one gets that $1 million. They can pay off what's left of the mortgage. They can take time off work. They can do whatever it is that they need to do. And with everything else they're dealing with at that time, at least they don't have to worry about money. Because some people will say, oh, well, if I die, like my wife will just sell the house. Well, how easy is it to just sell a house these days, right? Like you're not just going to sell the house tomorrow while you're also planning your husband's funeral and dealing with everything else you have to deal with at that time. And so for young couples, like it's relatively inexpensive in the grand scheme of things. I always say like get it set up before you move into the house, before you actually start paying that mortgage. Because a lot of people will say, oh, we're going to wait and see how all of our bills are now that we have, now that we have the house and the property taxes and all this stuff. But you should really look at it as part of your overall plan when you do buy that house. Because again, like if something happens, you don't want to have to be selling the house. Like those mortgage payments aren't going to stop if one person passes away. So get it set up while you're young.
Okay, Denise, the last question, we are often asking, what's the difference between market value and building coverage in the insurance?
So when you get your policy and you tell your insurance company all the details of your house, when it was built, square footage, that kind of thing, the company's going to come up with a rebuild value. So what does the insurance company believe it will cost to rebuild this exact same house for you? It is not the same as what you could buy it or sell it for. It's what the company can rebuild it for. So it would probably cost the same to rebuild a house here as it would in Burlington, but maybe you'd probably be able to sell it for a lot more in Burlington than here in Stony Creek. But if your house burns down, the insurance company is not going to buy it or sell it. They're going to rebuild you the same house. So it doesn't matter necessarily that because the market was just skyrocketing on that 1 year and you paid $1 million, but now you'd only pay 800. The building cost generally will be around the same. And then most companies will increase the building cost every year with inflation. So obviously we know the cost of materials and everything has increased in the last few years. So to kind of keep up with that. And then most companies too will be able to offer guaranteed replacement cost. So if the house does burn down and it costs more than what their building cost says it would, they guarantee they're still going to build you the same house. A lot of mortgage companies want to see that if they're offering a mortgage on the property.
Well, thank you very much, Denise. I'm so glad that I met you, and thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys find it very interesting and informative. So the full version of this interview you'll find on YouTube, and the short ones on Instagram. The all information about the Denise and her company will be in the comments, so you can find her. And I thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.